Hell is certainly one of the best-known teachings of Christianity. It's the threat that led to Pascal's wager, the place of unimaginable torment that some claim to have seen in near-death experiences, and such a popular concept that it has become both a euphemism and a swear in the English language. Hell is the abode of the damned, where the unsaved and the demonic forces will spend eternity after the end of this world. Curiously, though, we get a very different picture of things from looking back to the Hebrew Scriptures for any pre-existing notion of hell. The Old Testament continuously uses the Hebrew word Sheol when referring to the afterlife. However, this is a distinctly different place from hell, more similar to the Greek idea of Hades. The text teaches that both righteous and unrighteous people are sent to Sheol, as Jacob states in Genesis 37:35 that, "Surely I will go down to Sheol in mourning for my son." In the over 60 uses of the word in the Hebrew Scriptures, Sheol is never associated with rewards or punishments. Due to some of the more poetic references to Sheol, like those found in the Psalms, certain believers have interpreted it to simply be a personification of the grave or death. Today's NIV Bibles typically translate Sheol as the grave, but there is a tremendous problem with this view. In Job 7:9 it reads, "When a cloud vanishes, it is gone, so he who goes down to Sheol does not come up." If Sheol is literally and only the grave or death, as the NIV renders this verse, then what does this do to the theology of the New Testament? Death is the end, it apparently suggests. But even if this is to be taken to mean that no one ever comes up from Sheol and back into life in this world, what about Jesus, and what about Jesus raising Lazarus from the dead? Even if you believe Sheol is an actual place and not a personification, how does anyone get to heaven or hell? Sheol is obviously neither one of those destinations, and yet Job says no one comes out of it. The New Testament does endorse this idea of Sheol too, although it translates the word as Hades. Acts 2:31 speaks of how God did not abandon Jesus to Hades, nor did he let his body see decay. This is obviously a reworking of Psalm 16:10, in which the word for grave is, of course, Sheol. The book of Revelation also indicates that Hades is separate from death and a literal place that will be thrown into the lake of fire in the end times. Where does this lake of fire come from, though, and what about the hell we've all heard about that has endless agony and gnashing of teeth? There's no talk in the Old Testament of any such place, but then Jesus suddenly arrives in the New Testament telling everyone of the horrible tortures waiting for them in the afterlife. Interestingly, Jesus doesn't use the words Hades or Sheol when he speaks of the terrifying hell most of us are familiar with. He uses the word Gehenna. This concept actually goes back to some heretical texts that were rejected from the Christian canon. The Book of Enoch describes Sheol as being divided into 4 sections, one for the faithful, one for the moderately good, one for the moderately wicked, and one for the really wicked. Enoch postdates the Hebrew canon, but predates the New Testament, as do the books of 2nd Esdras and the Assumption of Moses, where the word Gehenna comes into use for the place of punishment. Gehenna is derived from Gehinnom, which is an actual valley in Jerusalem, where we are told in 2 Kings and Jeremiah that worshippers of Molech would participate in ritual human and child sacrifice. Not so surprisingly, the victims were offered as burnt sacrifices. So we have Sheol, Hades, Gehenna, and Tartarus according to 2 Peter 2:4. This is the only instance where the word is used, translated as hell in most Bibles, but the passage seems to indicate that Tartarus is the abyss into where demons will be cast to await Judgment Day. Hell was never part of Jewish theology. It appears that Jesus, or the author who wrote of him, ironically borrowed the concept from books that have since been excluded from the canon, which no literalists consider divinely inspired. Like in any mythology, the afterlife developed in Judeo-Christianity over time, turning from a simple underworld into a complex set of multiple realms, several featuring the most indescribable punishments for those who reject and oppose the religion.